Hello, I'm Yara Mazen, and welcome to the podcast Education Reimagined. This podcast is brought to you by New Era Education. These conversations were designed to explore how education not only shape our children's learning, but also who they become. Across this season, we will speak with teachers, students, parents, and experts about the elements that shape our children's journey, from curriculum to creativity, from resilience to leadership, and of course, community. Welcome again, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. In the first episode, we will discuss a very fundamental question. What is the true purpose of education today? Joining me today is Emma Webb, the Headmistress of Uppingham Cairo, to talk about character-building education and how schools can help prepare children for a rapidly changing world. Very interesting.
Very interesting indeed.
Hi, Emma. How are you?
I'm really well. How are you?
I'm great.
Good. Welcome to Uppingham Cairo.
Thank you for having us here.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for hosting us this season of the podcast. I'm very looking forward to all the conversations that we'll be able to have around here.
For sure.
So let's get to it.
Okay.
What do you believe education should ultimately get out of your children?
Gosh, that's a good question. What do you get out of them?
Yeah.
I suppose it's really, for me, it's more a question of what it should do for them rather than getting out of them. So I think when we think about our children here, we think about them, it's an overphrased term, I guess, to say that all children are unique, and that is true, of course. But all of the children that we have here, all the children around the world in wherever they are all a mixture of different talents and different interests. So I think education is primarily about helping them to find those things that they really enjoy, finding the things that they're good at, trying lots of different things so they have an opportunity to find those passions and to find those skills. So it's sort of really about what we're getting out of them. It's about the opportunity we're giving to them, so that they get to know themselves. And of course they evolve as well. So when they're 3-4 years old, they might like things that are pink, and by the time they're 17, 18, want to be an engineer, and that's fantastic. That's part of the joy of being in education. But education for me is about that. It's about not just learning about the world around you, but learning about yourself and how you evolve over time, and helping our families to understand their children as well.
Yeah. That's a really wonderful stance. But do you think the traditional systems caters for that? Like with the curriculums and the rigidity of the curriculums and maybe the focus on memorization and that space when it comes to education? Because that's a big focus.
For sure. I mean, I think tradition in different contexts means different things. And I think it means different things to different people. Mm-hmm. So if you're talking about tradition as in memorization, then no, I don't think that particularly helps children to find their passions and their interests. Mm-hmm. At the same time, do I believe that children need to know things? Of course. There has been some questioning going on around education, around whether children should still be learning things because everything that man knows is in the phone, which is true, but there's lots of things that are not true on your phone as well. So if we don't equip our children with knowledge, and knowledge as they get older turns into wisdom, without that they have no capacity to tell whether what they're reading is true or not. Yeah, so I think it's really important to understand that tradition means different things to different people in different places, in different contexts, in different systems.
Okay. And
so if we're talking about, as you mentioned, tradition in terms of memorization, I don't think that's great in terms of how it helps children to understand themselves necessarily. Learning something just to repeat it perhaps isn't that helpful. Learning to understand, of course, is helpful. And when we talk about knowledge being only, applicable if you haven't got a phone to consult, that's not true as well. So there's lots of information out there which is not true, and we need to make sure that our children can distinguish between what is real and what is not, and that's quite hard.
Yeah. How can educational system help for that?
So, for example, I'll give you a concrete example. So if you went to school and you hadn't been taught about the solar system, for example, and you hadn't been taught that the Earth rotates around the sun or in orbit around the sun, then you have no means of arguing anything if someone tells you otherwise. So you need basic knowledge. You need to have a basic understanding about how things function. Otherwise, you have no means of accessing the other information that's there. So you do have to educate children. They do have to understand how certain things work. And you need to help them to understand how people think around the world and to understand different perspectives. So traditional education, in that sense, still has a very important role to play in terms of understanding the fundamentals of how the world around you works and how other people work as well. So that has to be there at the core. But around that has to be a dynamic environment where children can have, can explore different avenues depending on what they're interested in. So you need to have that core and that rock, but at the same time you need to have a flexibility within your system that allows it to move to support the individual child.
Deep roots, wide horizons, I guess.
That's the one.
And do you think this would be enough for children to thrive in today's world? To have like the basic education that roots them and then have the flexibility and the discernment to kind of make up their own minds? Or is there an extra layer maybe that is needed?
I mean, there's many layers, isn't there? I think it's for me, the key things that we talk about here a lot. We talk about character, that a lot. Because actually, it's character that will help our children to be strong and happy adults. And that's a very different thing from talking about knowledge base and making sure they understand and learn things, which is important. But for me and for my school, it's those skills that they learn, those characteristics that we're looking for in them. That's what will make them really successful and happy adults. So it's the resilience, the grit that we help them to develop. I sometimes talk here about the children being a little bit like weebles, and weebles are a toy that I had when I was a child, and they're a bit like eggs. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but if you put them down and you knock them, they will wobble, but they will always come back up. To be the center.
So is this what you mean by saying character building education?
Yeah, so that's a big part of it, isn't it? It's about how you approach life in school, what you do with your children to help them to develop those characteristics that you know will see them well in their adult life. That's really important. So when I talk about children in Uppingham being like weebles, it's not about we go around knocking them to see if they will fall. That's not the point of the exercise at all. What we're doing is making sure that they have the skills that they need so that when life does knock them, which it will, because that's life, when they become adults, where they have disappointment or where something goes wrong or doesn't go quite as they'd like it to, they have the capacity to say, okay, well, I don't like that, but I'm going to brush myself off and I'm going to keep moving forward, because that's really important.
Yeah, and that's resilience.
Yeah, really important skill to have. So that's why the character part is so important.
And how do you put that in actual practice within Uppingham Cairo?
So it's all the time. So I say it's not around knocking children at all. We don't go around saying, right, it's going to make you uncomfortable and make sure that you can bounce back. It's not that. What it is about is saying, okay, to give you a concrete example, if you were in a race here and you came fourth, then we might give you a pat on the back and say, great, good effort, but we're not going to give you a prize for that because you came fourth.
Yeah.
And you had to come first, second or third in order to get a prize.
No celebration of participation.
Sure. We celebrate effort hugely. Effort's really important to us. So it's not about all the children who do best, who get all the prizes. Just to be clear about that, because that's not helpful either. But it's about the effort as well, but also understanding that, okay, so you came fourth and you're disappointed with that because you wanted to come first, second or third. You probably wanted to come first. And you wanted that medal. and now you're disappointed and you don't like that feeling. Okay, so the way that we would coach children through that situation is by saying, okay, I understand you're disappointed, and that's okay. That's a perfectly okay emotion to have. If you really, really want to be third, second, or first next time you have this opportunity, because there's always more opportunity, what are you going to do about it? What do you need to do so that you're not fourth next time?
I love this coaching bit. I love that walking through children through the hard emotions. I think this is a very important exercise that maybe most of parents actually miss, because we always feel that we need to make them happy. You know, kids should always be happy. But
For
again,
sure.
walking them through or coaching them through the hard emotions, I think that this is very true, that it does build character. That's for sure.
For sure, and I understand that. I'm a mother as well, and so I understand.
Yeah.
We don't want our children to hurt,
Yeah.
of course. Our natural instinct as parents is to protect our children, of course. The difficulty is that if we protect them from every negative emotion throughout their childhood, then when those emotions start to come back more powerfully as teenagers and as adults, they have no means of dealing with them because they're not used to them. And this is very difficult. And I think we're seeing lots of young adults now who are really struggling in early adulthood because they simply haven't had that slow build-up over their childhood of experiencing feelings which are not necessarily great. And not understanding that that's negative emotions are part of being a human being. It's part of who we are.
It's actually what builds resilience.
For sure.
Yeah.
But it's also normal. You know, it's normal to have a bad day.
Yeah.
It's normal for not everything to go your way. That's life.
Yeah. But what do you do?
What are you going to do about it? Yes. But also with those small experiences of disappointment, but also having someone sitting behind you and saying, it's okay. This is okay. You're going to be okay. And we're here to help you. We're here to coach you. We're here to help you to find a way to do this differently next time, perhaps. Or a way to try a bit harder or try differently. All of those things. That's skill building, because then our children learn how to deal with life's difficulties.
Yeah.
And they learn how to deal with those difficult emotions and realize that it's okay. And that's what really builds that resilience that I'm talking about.
Yeah. And something else that I love about what you're saying is creating that safety. And I think this is what schools should do, of course, to create that safety for them. You just said have their backs to navigate those emotions. So
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, sometimes when I talk to parents, if I'm doing a talk at school, sometimes we will do talks here where we invite our parents in to talk about things like this. And I explain that from my perspective as a parent, you know, when our children are born, we hold them really close, of course, as we should. They're helpless and they need our full protection, of course. As they get older and they start to walk and you hold their hand because they fall easily, and of course you're there, and if they fall, you pick them up. But we have to, over time, let them walk a little further away, and we have to let them fall over every now and again. Because if we don't, then they will always need us to be right next to them. Otherwise they can't cope.
That's
So
very inspiring. Yeah.
they need to think about, you know, and as I say to my mums and dads here, you know, we're never going to let them fall and hurt themselves, but we need to let them fall a little bit so that they know how to understand that feeling and they know what to do to correct it. That's really important. Really important. So, and we have lots of conversations around that because it is, you know, it's in our nature to protect our young. So this is something we have to talk about.
I agree, and I think it's something that us parents also need to kind of learn, to be able to kind of let go a little bit of our children for them to experience life on their own. I'm very curious. What are like the three most important characteristics that you would invest in building or uncovering in the children?
Well, resilience is one we just talked about.
Obviously,
Absolutely,
yeah,
that's really important
of
to me.
course.
I think it's critical. Endeavour is
Endeavour.
really important.
What do you mean?
Working hard. Understanding that no matter how gifted or talented you are in something, you have to work really hard if you want to be good at something. You know, if you want to learn to play a musical instrument to a really good level, you have to practice for 10,000 hours. Doesn't matter how great you are on your first lesson. It takes time. If you want to learn a language, you have to work at it. It takes time. If you want to learn to read, it takes so much more time than people realise. It takes a long time. It takes years to learn to read well.
Yeah.
You know, and in this world now where everything is instant, and we think, I've done something, so I should immediately be rewarded for that, whether it's a ping on a phone or whatever. That patience that is required in order to let something grow is difficult. It's more difficult now than it ever has been before, I think.
There has been a statistics that says that unfortunately the cognitive abilities of children nowadays, because of all the screens, is much less.
For sure.
And their endeavor as well, as you explained, their persistence, the effort, even us adults, honestly, at this day and age, the amount of time and effort that we're willing to put in one activity to be good at is challenging, and it does require patience.
It does.
How do you within Uppingham Cairo, how do you do that? How do you instill that?
Well, there's a number of things that we do. I mean, the first thing is we have no phones here at all. And because we're a day boarding school, that means that our children are nowhere near a phone screen from, most of them, from 7:30 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. So that distraction isn't here.
That's fantastic.
Which has been fantastic. When the children first came, I sat in, actually literally just here in this library with the senior school children, and talked to them about this issue around the mobiles and why I was taking them away from them. And I explained to them about the need for them to be able to make friends with each other without a screen in the way and so on. I went through all of those. That's another topic of conversation perhaps, but went through all of that with them here and said, this is why I'm taking them away. For now. I said, we have to do this for 2 terms. And I promise you that I'll come back into this library with you in 2 terms' time, and I'll ask you again whether you want them back. And I did. And they did not want them back at all.
That's brilliant.
Which is amazing. They don't want them back because they've realised, you know, the freedom that they have now.
There's so much life outside of the phone.
To not worry about it, And because they talk to each other, and they have conversations, and they play games with each other, and their capacity to focus has changed dramatically because of it. And their capacity to focus in a lesson for an extended period, the capacity to deal with a blank piece of paper has really changed. That was really interesting when we first came here. Many of our children had not really had much time where they were expected to write with a pen on a piece of lined paper.
They didn't use their hands yet.
They weren't used to. They were used to lots of learning resources whereby they were filling in the gaps, or it was online, or all those things, all of which have a place, don't get me wrong. But they hadn't really been expected to deal with that. And that's where the creativity comes in, because if you are merely responding to a computer or filling in blanks on a worksheet, then you are performing a function, but there's not a great deal of creativity in that.
But if you have a blank piece of paper and a pen and you're just left to it.
Sure, but it's really scary to start with. If you're not used to it. They're used to it now.
Yeah.
So now they say, off you go, and off they go.
That's fantastic.
And
it builds confidence, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
And confidence is probably the third thing, actually, that goes alongside the resilience and the endeavour, because if you're not confident, it's very difficult to achieve in life because you doubt yourself. And when you doubt yourself, you don't take risks, sensible risks, as I tell my children, not silly risks.
Sensible
risks.
Yeah.
But confidence is really important. But confidence comes from knowing who you are. So this all links back to the same story.
Yeah. And as well as practice, as well endeavor. Like, I mean, the more we practice, they say self-trust, it's born from practice. It's not, you're not born with it.
Exactly. And you know, these are why these three things keep coming back to each other.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking about coming fourth in the race and not being given the prize. So children know whether they deserve something or not, actually.
Yeah.
So when they get first prize here, they know that really means something.
Yeah. And there, I think this is when gratitude would kick in this character building, or being able to access that feeling of gratitude.
Exactly.
Because they did work hard and they did achieve it. So like the reward is so much more meaningful.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
No one really enjoys the pat on the back that they know they don't quite deserve.
Yeah.
And so that's really important, because then they start to make that connection between, okay, I like that. I'm feeling confident because I know that I'm being rewarded for something that I deserve and that I have worked for. And I know who I am. That's really important.
Yeah.
That's really important.
So the three characteristics are resilience, endeavor, and confidence?
Probably. There's probably more on the list that I'll come up with later, but yes.
But
so
I
far.
like them, and I like how they circulate, like they feed into each other, and then it's amazing. Now I want to attend your school.
Oh, thank you. You're very welcome to. You're very welcome.